All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another live stream. And this one is kind of an exciting one because this is our last live stream in our movie ratings model series. So this has been going on for well over 6 months now. Now, of course, it's not been, super consistent. We've been bouncing back and forth between projects, and I've taken a lot of this summer off for family and stuff. And so, it's not been like a straight 6 months. But here we are. This is our last live stream. We've made a long road, and we're doing one last thing today, so it's pretty exciting. We're finally going to deploy this thing out here to this Heroku platform for anybody to be able to use. So after we do this whole thing, we'll wrap up with an overview of the entire project, everything that we did from start to finish, A to Z. And so what is this stream? So today's stream, if you might recall, well, actually, let me give a very brief overview in case, even though this is the last stream, but this is the first one that you've attended here. So over the last couple months, we have been building a predictive model to predict the movie ratings of a particular movie reviewer. So I like to listen to this one podcast, and this one guy likes to give movie reviews, and I wanted to see if I could predict them. So he gives two different scores for his movies. One's a general thumbs up or thumbs down, so that's a binary score, and then the other one's a 0 to 10 score, like a 4.2 or a 3.3 or a 6.7. So 0 to 10, so that's a sliding scale there. So we have built the models. And in the last stream, we built a model user interface in FastAPI. And then we just developed those on our local machine here. So by the way, if anybody has any questions, I am monitoring the chat across both LinkedIn and YouTube. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them down there, and I will be happy to answer them in a timely capacity. Let's go ahead and do a very brief, a re-showing of what we did, where we left off last time. So like I said, we built this model user interface in FastAPI. So it's not pretty. I do want to go back and actually clean that up sometime. I won't do that as part of a stream. I'll probably just do that on my own time, just as a fun thing. So, so let's go ahead and start it up. So the way I did it is, so let me make this bigger for y'all. Boom. All right. So I actually have the starter script up behind this serve right here. So if I do a bash serve, let me actually show you what it's doing. So cat serve, actually, let me even rewind back even further. So cat API.py. So this is where our script is at. And as you can see here, with this little bit of code here this is the actual code that's actually serving out this HTML template, and behind the HTML template we can pop in a form, and with the form we can then give a movie prediction. So what the movie I don't want to cover too much because we'll do a full recap end to end of this project here at the end of the stream. So let's go ahead and start this up. So bash serve. All right, so this is going to start up the user interface. This is a very simple little user interface. All right, so it's running on localhost 8080. So let me go ahead and open this up into my browser. So localhost 8080. All right, so type in a movie to get the rating. All right, so what movie do we want to type in, folks? How about Top Gun Maverick? I actually have not seen this. I haven't even seen the first one. I don't know why, but that was the first one that come to mind. So let's click this. Okay, so this is the rating we got. So this is the unpretty version. I do want to pretty this up, I guess, at some point. The only reason I haven't done that yet is because front-end development is not my forte, but I do want to learn it, so that'll be a learning experience for myself. So here we go, the Top Gun, and then we have our score. So by the way, the reviewer's name, if you're not, if you are new here, his name is Kalen Bean, last name spelled B-I-E-H-N, so that's why this value says Bean, yes or no. So it predicted that he would give a yes, and he would give it a score of 7.8, pretty close to a 7.9. So actually, the reason I picked this one is because in the most recent podcast that I listened to the past couple days, he actually did rate Top Gun Maverick, and I believe he gave it a 9.5 out of 10 and a yes. So not super close with the score, although I will say, it's still in the positive end, so it's not like it was on the other end of the spectrum. So the one thing I will note is that it is a comedy podcast, so he gives some kind of off-the-wall ratings, and that is why we weren't able to give a perfect model here because the signal wasn't super strong within the data. Okay, so let me go ahead and shut this down. So what we are going to do now is basically take this up, and I want to deploy out into something that anybody could use in the world. And because I'm cheap, I wanted to figure out a way to do it for free. So what we're going to do for that is we are going to use this platform called Heroku. So if you are unfamiliar with Heroku, oh, it's just taking me to the dashboard. Heroku is this platform. So if you all are familiar with like Amazon Web Services, which is ironic because I think AWS just went live on LinkedIn at the same time that I did. So if you came here and not to AWS's, thank you. No offense to AWS or anything, but but anyway, so if you're familiar with the service on AWS known as Elastic Beanstalk, so if you imagine, you know, the what is it, like, I don't want to say the word fairy tale, I guess fairy tale, the fairy tale of Jack and the Beanstalk, where, you know, you have Jack, he throws in these little beans and it grows into this giant beanstalk. So the idea with Elastic Beanstalk on AWS is that you basically kind of just put out your code out there, and then AWS kind of tries to figure out what the proper infrastructure is to put around it. So Heroku seems to be very similar, although the difference between Heroku versus Elastic Beanstalk is there is a free option. Now the free option is limited in the sense that, you can see here, I've actually deployed this already once, but I'm going to do it from scratch just for the purpose for y'all. But like, for the free option, it's a smaller application. I think it's limited to 500 megabytes. And the catch is that it is only active when you try to use it. So if I was using the application right now and I walked away, it would go into an active state, which is fine, because if I went back to the same URL, then I could start interacting with again. It would just take like 30 seconds to warm up again. So not great for a real production application, but because this is kind of just a fun project and it's, you know, free, and I'm not trying to be super serious with it, that this is going to be totally sufficient for what we do. So, you know, a couple prerequisites if you want to use Heroku. Obviously, you do need to sign up for Heroku. It is free to sign up. I do not believe I had to put in any sort of credit card or anything for that. And then you need to install the Heroku command line interface on your machine. So that's simple enough. I think you just need to like Google Heroku CLI. Yeah, Heroku CLI, download that, and be on your way. So before we actually deploy it to Heroku, I want to talk about how we are going to actually deploy this thing. So here is my code base here. Off on the left navigation, you can see all the different directories and stuff. So I kind of forgot about this because I had actually deployed this with Heroku actually a couple months ago whenever I was first testing things out. For some reason, I thought it had to be Dockerized in a Docker container, but apparently not. So the way that we had developed this thing before in our last stream is we created this Docker file here that built this Docker container that you could actually deploy out to, you know, Kubernetes or any of the other AWS services or something like that. Heroku is a little bit different. So the way that Heroku works is actually you just put, you know, it works very much just like GitHub in the sense that you push up your code in a Git format to Heroku, and then Heroku uses some special files to actually know how to build your application. So it's actually pretty simple to get started. Like it's simple, although it was a little bit confusing for me because, you know, you do have to have things in the precise syntax. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So let's go ahead and create a new project here. So within my application or my dashboard here, I'm going to create a new app. I'm going to call this movie ratings live demo because we are live demoing this. All right, so this is available. I'm going to keep it as the United States region, create the application. Okay, so to actually connect your Git repo, I guess locally to this application here, you just need to follow these instructions here. So it's simple enough. Let's run these commands. So I need to run this Heroku login. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to close this out. All right, so I'm going to do Heroku login. Okay. All right, so it asks me to open up the browser. Oh, I need to press the key. All right, opening up my browser. All right, so log in. All right, I'm authenticated, so I should be able to go back to here. And okay, so it's now I'm logged in. Okay, before we actually go further, I do need to make some alterations to actually get it to work on Heroku. Alterations and additions. So let's cover the additions first. So the way that, like I said, the way that Heroku works is I actually push everything up to like this, almost like this Git repository, if you will. And so it actually looks for a couple different files here. So the first file it looks for is this something called this proc file. And what this proc file is basically saying is is, okay, for every line in here, I am going to run an initiating command, if you will. And so in this case, you can see I'm just calling this my simple web application. And this is going to look semi-familiar to you because we covered this in a previous stream. So basically, because we are using FastAPI, we need to use Uvicorn to actually serve it out. So we are saying, okay, Heroku, we want you to use Uvicorn to serve out on host 0.0.0.0, port 5000. And so it does need to be in this precise syntax this way. Again, I don't really remember how I did this because it's been a little bit. Like I said, I actually did deploy this thing out to Heroku a while back. It's just that I didn't put all the pieces together until now. So I can't remember where I got this, but I'm sure it's listed in their documentation somewhere. And then I actually pointed to the app directory. So, here noting that, we got to dig down into the source and then digging into the model inference UI. And then we look at the API.py file. And then within the API.py file is our API. So that is it. Now, here's the alteration that we need to make. So notice that the syntax here is all very much in line with what we did for actually building this in the Docker container. Now, the trouble with this is that there are some ways we're going to have to refactor this thing to actually get it to work appropriately for Heroku. So notably, you'll see that because our model inference UI is in this directory, we are saying, okay, we want to actually open up our different saved models from these directories. Now this is going to be a little bit different because we are now initiating the commands from the source, the root of the directory. We are going to need to change this so we're going to need to change this as well. And then also remember, whenever we need to do our inference, we need to actually reach out to some APIs to get some data. So like we just did the inference there for Top Gun Maverick. So what we're basically doing there is when we say, okay, I want the score for Top Gun Maverick, we're actually reaching out via a number of APIs from these sources called, TMDB, OMDB, TMDB standing for the movies database, OMDB standing for Open Movies Database. And so I need these API keys. Now these API keys are sensitive, and note that because they are sensitive, I intentionally used get ignore to actually put the keys locally, and that way when I push back up into GitHub, they will not show. Now here's the problem I guess with that. In the same way, whenever I push this Git repository up to Heroku, this keys file will not get pushed up. So we need to address that as well. Okay, so I'm talking fast today. All right, so the way I'm going to handle it actually is with special environment variables. So in Heroku, you can actually define some environment variables as part of this project here, and then reference them appropriately from your application. So what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to create a new environment variable that says, okay, this is basically being deployed out onto Heroku, and if it's being deployed out onto Heroku, then load it in this very specific way. Otherwise, load it in this old way that we're good with already. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to go into settings, and then I'm going to reveal the config vars. And so I'm going to create my first little environment variable here. I'm just going to call it is Heroku, and then I'm going to put yes. So then when we go back into our application, we will actually note that, okay, yes, we are working from Heroku. Now, I do need to add my other keys in here, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second so I can go ahead and add these in here. So let me go ahead and add my first key in here. So my first key is, I'm trying to remember, sorry. All right, so my TMDB key. I just don't want to reveal these because these are sensitive fields. And I guess they're not super sensitive, but if somebody takes it and run with it, then I won't be able to use them anymore. I'll get banned from these APIs. So that's why I just don't want to reveal these. Okay, so there's one. All right, so OMDB key. All right, and then I'm going to grab it from here. All right, now close that out. Save that. Sorry, I am almost done here. Okay, and then that is good to go. So, all right, now go back to the overview. All right, now I can share my screen again. So no more secret stuff. All right, so all right, well, actually, you can see here in my latest activity that I set some new variables here. So I set the is Heroku variable, I set the TMDB key variable, and I set the OMDB variable. So now these are safely stored up within Heroku, and we can reference them appropriately that way. So that way we do not have to push up those keys from that Git up, so I'm not risk pushing them out to GitHub for whatever reason. So that means we now have to make an alteration to the code here. So what we're going to do here is I'm actually going to copy all of this, and I'm going to create a new if. Well, I need to load that environment variable. So checking for Heroku environment variable. So this is where I'm going to call it is Heroku. Is Heroku equals os.getEnv, and then we called that is Heroku. So this is again reading the same environment variable that we just saved up in Heroku. So this is so basically when we run this locally, because presumably we will not have this environment variable set locally or in any other platform. So this one's always going to be blank. But if it is, then it's going to read as yes. So this is where I'm going to setting the appropriate variables for it if deployed to Heroku. So basically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a simple if-else statement to actually manage this here. So I'm going to put if is Heroku equals yes. Then that's when I need to start making a bunch of alterations. So I'm actually going to move all of this into the else block now. So now all this is in the else block. All right. Because I don't need, all right, so now I need to make some alterations here. But I'm just gonna copy this code from down here as a starting point just to make my life a tiny bit easier. Okay, so now instead of getting the key from the YAMLs file here, we are actually going to get it from Heroku. So the way we get that again is os.getEnv, env. What do we call this? We call this TMDB key, all caps, TMDB key. Okay. All right, now we're going to do os.getEnv, OMDB key. All right, now we need to make some more alterations here. So remember, whereas we were initiating the actual application from within this directory, within our Docker container, we are now initiating it from the root directory. So we actually need to make sure that we are loading this differently here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do an os.path.join. I'm going to get os.getCWD. Is that right? Yeah. Get current working directory. And then I'm going to do a join, and then I'm going to join that with the models binary classification pipeline.pkl. All right, so similar sort of deal. All right, did I do this right? I feel like I'm missing a paren somewhere. Maybe right here. I think that's right. All right, just making sure that my syntax looks fine. Yeah, I think that's fine. Okay, so now I need to basically copy the same thing here. So instead of being this path, it's going to be this path. And, oh, I did not copy enough. All right, let's try that again. All right, so copy this whole thing, paste it down here, and then obviously we need to change this to our regression pipeline. So this is representing that 0 to 10 score that we are looking to load. All right, so there's that. All right, next up, we need to do something very similar to here. So instead of webpage.html, we are going to do another os.path.join. So os.getCWD. Okay, like so. And what are we loading up here? Oh, hold on, I gotta look over here. Sorry, the reason I'm looking down here is because I did this the other day just to make sure I did everything correctly. So, all right, SR, okay, yeah, now, all right, that's right. Model inference UI. And then we need to change this to webpage/HTML. Okay, and then same sort of deal here. All right, I feel like I keep missing parentheses here. Okay, yeah, I'm missing another parenthesis. That by far is probably one of the things I do the most often, is always forgetting that extra little right parenthesis there. So yeah, I'm sure y'all know what I mean with that. So all right, so basically, oops, I didn't want to move that. I want to copy this. Same sort of story here. It's just that instead of web age, not web age, web page. All right, Oh my gosh, come on, select there. All right, now we just need to replace this directory here with this slash webpage slash CSS. Okay, and this is just the basic CSS that I'm using here. All right, and that should be all the alterations that I have to make to here. So now this is basically saying, just a quick recap. So whenever we deploy this out to Heroku, because it's going to be a little bit different, we are going to use the Heroku environment variable to let us know that, yes, we are deployed to Heroku, and we're going to load the appropriate API keys from those special environment variables that we set over here in the user interface, and loading everything up appropriately from the correct file paths. All right. So any questions? Let me check the stream stuff here. Nothing yet. Let me take a quick sip. Okay, so let's proceed forward now. So what we need to do next is we actually need to connect this thing up to our Git repo. So there were instructions here, but now that I've done activity, I don't recall how to do this off the top of my head. All right, access, activity, metrics, deploy. Okay, here we go, under the deploy tab. All right, so these are the instructions that you actually need to do. Because we already have initiated this Git repository, we just need to copy some commands here. So I'm gonna copy this Heroku for remote, basically adding a new remote with a Heroku thing there. All right, so what we need to do is Heroku, wait, no, we just need to paste, that's right. All right, we need to do that. Okay, now we need to commit our changes. So git commit, or well, let me check to see what did we add. All right, git status. So yep, that's all. Yep, that's all we changed. All right, git status or git add all, git commit, updating for live stream demo. Okay. Git push origin main, so that's pushing back up to GitHub appropriately. Now here's where things get a little bit different. So typically we're used to doing a git push origin. So origin is the most people, I don't know if people realize this, you can actually push out to multiple different remotes from the same Git repository. It's just that you have to name them differently. So most people are familiar with origin because that's the one that we normally work with, that's the source of where we push our code up to. But what this Heroku command up here did is it added a new remote called Heroku. So what we need to do here is a git push origin Heroku. No, I'm sorry, git push Heroku main. There we go. And what you'll see here is after we start to push this up, now it's going to start building up on Heroku. So you can see, oh, there's one thing I did neglect to mention here. So in addition to the proc file here, you also do need to have your requirements.txt file at the root directory. So even though I typically like to put the requirements.txt file in something like a directory like the dependencies directory, both the proc file and the requirements.txt file do need to be in the root directory. So and the reason for that is, as you can see, it is downloading all the binaries for the Python that we are building, like FastAPI and whatnot. And if you do not have those in there, obviously your application is not going to be able to run. So you can see it is basically, it's building everything right now. Just finished downloading all the Python libraries that we need, and now it is starting to do its business to actually get this thing out on Heroku. So this is going to take a minute or so. It's actually not too long. So I found it maybe takes 2 or 3 minutes to actually do this. And really, honestly, when this is done, this is it. So it's actually pretty simple. Okay, there we go. Now it's saying that this is actually deployed to Heroku. Even though it says that it is, I actually found that it actually does take another minute or so. But you'll see that this command line here is going to complete here in just a minute. And like I said, the nice thing about Heroku here is, what we just deployed here is totally free. I'm not getting charged for this at all. Now, granted, you do not want to do this for something like a real application because, like I said, if it goes inactive, you will no longer be able to, or you won't be able to interact with it until you try. What am I trying to say? If it goes inactive, it's not going to work until you warm it up again, and it takes like a 30-second warm up or something. Okay, so you can see that everything completed after we did that push up of our Git branch. So what we should be able to do is, well, I guess we could copy the same this link here, but I like to just go in here. So if you go into here, or it's this open app button. So if we go to the open app button, then this should open up our application. And this would actually be live. So if anybody actually, if anybody's actually watching this live stream, I actually can't tell if people are watching right now or not. You should be able to go back out to this hyperlink here and try it out for yourself. Like I said, it does, even though it says it's complete, I have found that it actually takes another minute or two for it to build. So, or I did something wrong. Oh, well, I guess that's a good thing to demonstrate here is if you want to actually make sure that nothing's going wrong, you can go into your overview, and then up here is this more button, and under the more button, you can click your view logs, and it'll show your logs. And I did something wrong here. Okay, no problem. So it looks like I may have mistakenly done something here. Okay, so let me check to see what I did here. All right, so get CWD, because I know this is working for my other one. I probably made some simple syntax mistake. All right, model. Okay, might help if I had the letter S in there. Simple mistake. Okay, all right. Get add all. Get commit. Am fixing typo. Get push Heroku main. So it's gonna take a minute to build again. That's my fault. All right, did I do any other silly mistake there? Okay, so you can see it's trying to build again now. All right, so that was my bad. I forgot to put the letter S there. Ugh. You know how many times I've had issues due to typos? Like even just earlier this week at work, like I spent an hour trying to figure out something, and then I had another coworker come on because I needed a second set of eyes. Like, all right, what am I doing wrong? He's like, you forgot a pipe character, like the little like vertical line. I forgot one pipe character, and I lost the whole hour to one character, and that's happened to me more times than I care to admit. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure it does. It's not just me though. I'm sure this happens to everybody. Computers need to be, very precise with a very precise syntax. So, any questions? If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on LinkedIn, there is a chat functionality below. I'm monitoring it down below. So if you have any questions along here, feel free to ask. All right, so let's see how are things going here. Now the nice thing is the second time you do a build, it doesn't. I don't think it has to do all the downloading the binaries again, or maybe it does. No, it doesn't appear so. Let's see, using cached. Okay, yeah, it's using some caching here. I actually don't know. So one question that I'm wondering myself right now is how do I set the actual Python version? Because I actually am using, I think, Python 3.9 on my local machine here. So I'm sure that there probably is some sort of setting on Heroku that you can actually note that. So I actually really like Heroku. I guess my only biff with Heroku is the fact that you have to have the proc file and the requirements.txt file in root, because I am a stickler for organization and I love to put everything in directories. So the fact that I can't put these files in directories kind of irks me, but it's okay. It's free. Beggars can't be choosers. All right, same change from crashing to starting. Okay, so now it appears to be starting. All right, so it's trying to start this command. All right, let's see. It started the parent process. Let's close this tab out. Okay, and all right, so it appears to be working. All right, so let's open this up. Hey, look at that there. All right, so I'm gonna drop this in the chat just to really. So this is the same link that I just now deployed, just so you all can see. Hey, we actually did this thing live, and it's actually working right now. So if you want to test this out, I'm gonna do Top Gun Maverick again. Top Gun Maverick. All right, get my rating. Internal server error. What is my internal server error? All right, my internal server error, unauthorized URL for OMDB API. I wonder if I typed something wrong again. Okay, I may have typed something wrong. Okay, os.getenv, OMDB key, OM. Oh my gosh. I juxtaposed those letters. Yeah, that would be why. Okay. All right, another typo. Yeah, okay. All right. All right, get add all. I do that all the time, especially with the letters D and B, because they look so similar, especially in lowercase form. Oh my gosh. All right. Commit M. All right. Fixing another typo. All right. But we're getting closer. Oh my gosh. I can't believe I did that twice. Well, I can't believe I did that twice, but that's what you get for live coding. It could be a lot worse, but okay, so if you're trying to go out there to my application, you will see the application, but you will get an internal server error. So I apologize for that. Also, I do know that if you try to, I do want to clean up, the application to properly handle some error messaging that I'm not handling appropriately. But in I guess in a perfect world scenario, it's working pretty well. Okay, so let's see this thing build one more time, and then like I said, this is pretty much it. There's nothing else to this effort. Like once this is done, like it's done. So this is a pretty short live stream today, which is why I wanted to do the whole recap of this whole thing at the end here. So, okay, so deploying. All right, so looks like it's starting down here. Okay. Y'all having a good Friday so far? Is anybody watching? I actually don't know if people are watching or not. I assume people aren't. I mean, you know, so that's the one thing I guess I'll talk about live streaming for a little bit is it, you know, I'm doing this for multiple reasons. I'm not doing this for pay, honestly. Like, I don't make any money off this at all. Like, YouTube, LinkedIn, they don't give me a dime for this. I do this for 2 reasons, or 3 reasons. Number one, I do it to help you. You know, I genuinely do want to help out others and help others grow because, you know, I don't know. I feel like, you know, everybody, whenever I first came into the whole machine learning space, people were super generous to me with learning. So I want to be super generous back to other people. So that's why I will always keep these streams for free, even if whatever. So that's one reason. Number 2 is it helps to keep me accountable for learning. So if, you know, I don't know if anybody's ever said this, but I kind of find it if you can teach it, it helps you to solidify your understanding of it. So that's that's number 2. And number 3 is to work on my presentation skills. You know, I am kind of I don't know if this will surprise you or not. I kind of am an introverted person. Well, I actually am very much an introverted person. So this is helping me to build my public speaking skills and stuff. And so I hope, you know, it'll be interesting in a year to see how much I've progressed. Because we're coming up on the 1 year mark. Because I think the first time I started doing these live streams, I think it was probably pretty terrible, and I think I've gotten better over time. So yeah, all right. So now that I've stalled for time here again, let's see if this will actually work. So all right, zoom in, Top Gun Maverick. All right, get my rating, and all right, there we go. Let's give ourselves a round of applause, people. That's it. That is how you do the whole thing. All right, I'm really happy. I'm happy to see, you know, it's awesome to see a project go from start to finish, and yeah, this is so cool. All right, so that is Heroku for you. All right, so let's recap everything that we've done in this project at a high level, just to show you how far we've come. Like, we've done a lot of coding here, and it's been an exciting project. I'm pretty, you know, obviously I'm going to go back and clean up the HTML to make it look a lot prettier than it is right now. This is just super simple and super basic. Okay, so let's start off at the very beginning. So like I said, I have been going back through and listening back through this podcast back catalog to get all the movie ratings and then storing them in the spreadsheet. So like I said, this is a comedy podcast, so he actually does rate more things than just movies. He actually does TV shows and then just random other things too. So you'll notice here, line 210, line 211, Alita Battle Angel got an 8.6 out of 10 and was a approval, like a binary, like a thumbs up basically. And then, but the experience of watching Alita Battle Angel in 3D in a theater, perfect 10. And yes, so yeah, so I captured everything in a Google spreadsheet like this, and then starting to use some of the magic of Python here is actually, this is dynamically pulling from the Google Sheets here to actually load in all of this data into a pandas data frame, and then we save it out as a CSV file. So that was one of the very first things we did, one of the very first streams that we did. Next stream that we did was actually getting the data from various APIs. So that's what this data gathering sheet is all about. So there are a number of different APIs that we worked with. We worked with a lot of movie database things. So they're actually all similarly named, so that's why they all look the same. So we have the movies database, TMDB. We have, of course, IMDb, the Internet Movie Database, the open source movie database, and then, of course, we had the Rotten Tomatoes. And so with these APIs, I showed you how to interact with them appropriately to get a bunch of different data that we could use to actually help build our predictive model here. So you can see things like from the movies database, we got things like genre, budget, secondary genre, I guess here's a better way to show it. Popularity, vote count, vote average, things like that. So we spent, this took quite a bit of time, of course, and this is where I was saying, of course, you can sign up for these APIs for free with these API keys. However, do note that they limit you on how many times you can query the database. I think it's like 500 a month, which is why I'm not super worried about having this application out here live. But that's also why I don't want to go leaking out the API keys, because if you go beyond 500, I think they start charging you, or they just shut you down if you don't have a credit card attached to them. So I don't think I have a credit card attached to them, which is why I shut mine down, or like mine would just get shut down. So we pulled from these number of these APIs. So after we gathered all this data, then we went into the next step of feature engineering. So this was taking all these features and all this raw data from the previous step and actually transforming this into proper numeric values that we can pass into our machine learning models here. So and then I showed you different ways of doing feature transformation. So we have one hot encoding. So we took our primary genres here, or our two genres, primary and secondary genre here. We performed a one hot encoding on these because we did not want to do numerical coding, because doing a straight numerical coding would create an unnecessary hierarchy bias there. I showed you how to do some relative changing of things. So I calculated a movie age by comparing the current year. So using this Python things here. So we even started this in 2021. So I don't know. Obviously that's not right anymore. So we got the current year, and then we compared it to the year the movie was released to produce a relative movie age. And then we did other things like just general data cleanup. So like the Rotten Tomatoes critic score here, it had a percentage sign in it. So not only did we get rid of that percentage sign, we also turned it into an integer value, and then so on and so forth. So this was probably the longest part of the project, even though it doesn't look that long. When it comes to any machine learning project, the whole data thing, the whole process of working with your data and getting prepped to actually put in the machine learning model, that by far is the longest. So when I'm talking about exploratory data analysis, the actual gathering of the data, and feature engineering, that probably comprises, 80 to 90% of any machine learning project. Data science friends, you can keep me honest there, but maybe it's not that high. I don't know. It's a lot though. So we did that. Then we tested out a number of different algorithms. So this is our model selection notebook. So here is where we actually wanted to try a number of different algorithms to see how they would perform. So remember, we actually created two models as a part of this. We created our binary classifier to get the binary yes or no score, and we created a regression algorithm to get the 0 to 10 score. So we tried out 5 different of each of these algorithms. So we tried out logistic regression, Gaussian naive Bayes, support vector classifier, random forest classifier, and cat boost classifier for the binary classification models. And so to help me out here, I created a helper function that would make it very easy to kind of go through here. And as part of this helper function, you can see here that we are even doing things like a grid search. So grid search here is doing a search through for the ideal hyperparameters to give into a model algorithm. And then the other thing here we also did was a k-fold split. So what the k-fold split here is doing is if you have a minimal amount of data and you want to, make the best use of it without doing any sort of cross-mingling of the data, or what is that word? There's an actual word that I always want to say cross-contamination, but basically you have your training data, you have your validation data, you don't want the two to mix, but if you don't have that much data, what's the best way to make use of it? And so we use k-fold validation here. We produce some different scores, and then and then average them all together and print them out at the end, which made it very nice to actually test these out. So then when we tested these out, you could see this is a pretty minimal amount of code. So, we're passing in our hyperparameter grid, we're passing in our logistic regression, and then we can actually see the different results that we get for each one of these algorithms. So then we skip on down to the regression models here. The regression models here, we tested out linear regression. We tested out lasso regression. We tested out the support vector regressor. We tested out random forest regression and the cat boost regressor. And so basically at the end of this whole thing, and so this, and if you recall during that stream, because I said this is a comedy podcast, and the scores that he gives to these movies are kind of a joke sometimes, we actually noted that the R2 score was actually pretty terrible across all these models. So if you're not familiar with the R2 score, if you have a negative score, this is basically saying, this model cannot predict what this score is. So, I mean, it's funny, I think. I actually was not expecting much out of this. This is a fun project. Again, if this was a serious project, this is where we would actually talk to our business partners and say there might not actually be a correlation that we could do here appropriately. So that is, something to keep in mind if you actually are doing a real machine learning project for a real company. So I think at the very end here, I think we settled on the random forest classifier algorithm for the binary classifier, and then we settled on the lasso regression algorithm for our our 0 to 10 rating score. All right, so after we did that, we went into actually combining all this stuff into seamless model training pipeline. So this is basically the point where we took the same feature engineering helper functions and then the same model the model algorithms that we tested in the previous notebook, and then we put them all together. And the reason we put them all together is the nice thing about doing this is that you can see here, so this preprocessor is doing all the feature transformations. You can basically then put in a raw data. So the raw data in this case would just be the movie title, and then it would get all the data, all the raw data from all the different APIs, and do all the feature transformation, and then do the actual predictive inference all in one seamless package. So that's why we, coming back to our code here, we only had to import this one model, well, I guess times two because there's different models. But, if you didn't do this, if you had it all separately, then you have to save out, your feature engineering code. You'd have to save out, your all these different things. And it's just nice to have this one seamless little package all in one little file right there, good to go for you. Okay, so then, so this is the feature engineering code that we use some special custom transformers with our assistance of scikit-learn with this function transformer function. And then we packaged it all up as a scikit-learn pipeline. So again, like I said, we were doing all the feature transformations and then doing all the model transformations, fit it against our data, and then did the same thing for our regression models, and then we saved it out finally. Then finally, in our previous stream, we actually started to turn this into a FastAPI interface. So this is where we use FastAPI to turn this into a regular API. So you can see down here, if we wanted to use this as a regular API, we would just make some callouts to this invocations function right here. And then so we could use it as a standard API. And then we took it a step further because FastAPI offers this functionality of actually hosting basic HTML web pages out. So we turn this into a web application. And then finally in this live stream, toward the beginning here, we actually deployed this out into Heroku. And so now people can actually, at their own leisure, go ahead and try to use this here to predict some different movies. And like I said, this is not perfect because what this is actually doing behind the scenes, if you recall, is it's first reaching out to OMDB to see if the movie's in there. So if you have a typo at all or anything, I actually tried to do like Thor: Love and Thunder the other day. So I don't know what it actually is supposed to be, but I got an internal server error. So this is basically saying like, for some reason this did not work. Internal server error. So it's not perfect, and I could go back and clean up those errors, but if we wanted to type, Interstellar. This is one of my favorite movies, Interstellar. So this works just fine. So I do need to clean up some of that error messaging and stuff. So you could see here that we do have, looks like Mr. Bean here would give a yes thumbs up score at a rating of 7.8, close to 7.9. And I just realized the Top Gun Maverick was almost the same, so I'm now wondering how valid this model actually is. But like I said, this was not a perfect model. But the whole idea here is to give you a general sense of what the whole process of building a predictive model is like, taking it from start, where you're just gathering an idea of something that you want to do, gathering all the appropriate data that you would have to support, doing all the feature engineering, testing out some different modeling algorithms, and then training your model, and then finally deploying it appropriately in whatever capacity that looks like. And friends, that is it. That's it for this project. That's exciting. I'm really, I'm pretty thrilled that this whole project, we finished it. So I guess there's not much more to say. We'll keep this stream short today. I will be back another time. I do have other projects in mind. So I do need to, I'm not exactly ready for those projects. So actually, let's recap. So far in our streaming, I think I started streaming like last September or something like that. We did a Titanic project, so that was just a basic, understanding some basic machine learning things. We did the movie ratings model project. We did a handful of things in here around like, doing like a Wordle application. And then we started to do a computer vision project around, actually, because I'm a mentor at the local high school where I'm helping out with their STEM program there. So we started that project in terms of using computer vision to detect when cars left a parking lot. The reason I've not gotten back to that one is because I need to do some more homework myself in understanding that. So like I said, this stream is as much for me as it is for you. I need to actually learn the stuff myself before I'm able to teach it. So that's why I put that project on pause for now. And I have started a brand new project that we have not done any live streams for yet, that's going to interact with the Twitter API, and it's going to be a natural language processing project. So if you would like to follow along with that project, just note that, very similar to the APIs that we worked with for the movie ratings model, you do have to sign up for them, and you do get an API key. And I think, so I actually signed up for these a couple years ago. I don't know what the process is now, but you actually do have to get permission from Twitter to do this. So the only thing I know is if you do want to sign up for the API, and you have to provide like a business case of what you want to do, be honest with there and just say, I'm teaching myself machine learning or natural language processing as a student, and I want access to the Twitter API to be able to do these things. So more to come on that. I talked a lot there. My voice is already starting to give out. And that's okay. I am going to go enjoy the warm weather now. So I hope you all have a great weekend. I hope you enjoyed this project. I hope you learned something. Thank you very much for watching. It's been a very fun project. I've had a great time learning or sharing everything with you all. I know, so I've actually reached, by the way, like the podcaster I'm in reference, it's not a big podcast. He knows I did all this. He and I have talked about it. And in fact, so he was a podcast producer for the comedian Adam Carolla, and he has recently quit and now wants to become a software developer himself or a software engineer himself. So I would like to say, and he and I have actually had a one-on-one conversation about that and the different educational like avenues there. So and he's actually the son of actor Michael Biehn of the Terminator series. So he's a super nice guy. But yeah, he's aware of this and he thinks it's a funny and cool project. So all around, I had a ton of fun with this project, and I hope you did too. And I hope you learned a lot, and I hope you appreciate it. So with that, I'm going to end there. Hope you all have a great weekend. Thank you very much. See you later.